There may be times when you want to share a link to a Google slide presentation. So, examples of when this might be applicable is, let's say you've created a template for your students. So, you want them to use this template and you just want them to input their own information that you've told them in the various slides. Another example is if you're sharing information with colleagues and you want them to be able to access that later after your presentation. Maybe you have links or things that they'll need to refer back to. In both of those situations, you would actually want the recipients to have their own copy in their Google Drive. Because if you simply shared a link to this specific Google slide presentation, then everyone would be working in the same presentation. Now, you could make it just a view only. Let's say if you were going to share it with colleagues. However, any changes that you make, they would also see that later on. So if you just want them to have their own copy of the presentation that you give that day, I'm going to show you how to make a tiny URL for that. Okay, the first thing you want to do is click the share button and make sure that this is how you want it. So I've already changed this, but I did that by going to the Get Shareable link. And then I have the options where it says can view. I can click more. And I've chosen to have anyone with the link being able to access that. That's specifically important if you're going to present outside of the corporation. Okay, so once you have that link sharing how you want it, you can click save and done. All right, and this is how you can force your recipient to have their own copy. So if you notice up in the URL, there is a backslash and then the word edit. I want to actually erase everything through the word edit and type in the word copy. Again, this will force your recipient to make their own copy in their Google Drive. Then I'm simply going to highlight that URL and copy it. And then I want to go to tinyurl.com. Now, there are several websites that shorten URLs. This just happens to be the one I use most often. And I'm going to right click and paste that URL into there. Now, I can simply click Make Tiny URL, and it will give me a tiny URL with just letters and numbers. That may be a little difficult for your students to type in. So you can actually make a custom alias, and this is optional. The only catch to this is if anyone has ever made a link that name, it's not going to work. So this has to be a brand new name. So I'm just going to type in Zepic, and you can actually see some of the ones that I've used before, which is helpful to make sure that you don't use them again. So I'm just going to put Zepic sample, and then I can click Make Tiny URL. And if it's successful, it'll say tiny URL was created. If not, it'll tell you that's already been used and you'll have to do it again. Now, I can actually take this tiny URL and then give it to my students. So maybe I just put it up on the board and they type it in. Or if I'm giving a presentation to a group, I can actually put in my presentation, go to tinyurl.com epic sample. Okay, so you'll see that a lot of times at conferences or whatnot, so that when you're projecting this, then the person can see what it is. So it's up to you how you want to do that. But in any case, when someone types in this tinyurl.com /Zepic sample, they're going to be forced to make their own copy. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. And to do that, I'm going to have to sign out of my Google account. And I'm just going to sign in with my personal Google account so you can see what it looks like as a recipient. So if I'm a student or participant in a workshop, colleague, whatnot, I can do tinyurl.com /Zepic sample. And when I click that in, notice that it has copy document. Would you like to make a copy of sample presentation? I simply just click make a copy, and there it is. So if I'm a student, I can actually now, make the changes to this template to make it my own project. Or if I'm a colleague or someone at a presentation, then I have that information to refer back to. So that is how you force recipients to make a copy of your presentation and how to make a tiny URL.